I saw a headline this morning that warmed my old heart, which is a rare occurrence in this era of demented capitalism. It was a story about a family passing down a set of laundromats to their sons, and the biggest worry they had was not the Federal Reserve, and it was not the price of Bitcoin, and it was not artificial intelligence. Their biggest worry was how to keep the sons' spouses from getting their hands on the cash flow. Now, you might laugh, and the high priests of Wall Street would certainly turn up their noses at a business that involves washing dirty underwear for quarters. But that little laundromat represents something that has almost entirely vanished from the American financial mind, a boring, productive asset that actually generates cash. Consider the other headline I saw today about a software company that decided to stop being a software company and become a gambling parlor for digital tokens. Its stock is now behaving exactly like a ball in a roulette wheel. The world has gone stark raving mad with the desire for complexity. Everyone wants to be a hedge fund manager, or a venture capitalist, or a crypto visionary, because they think that is how you get rich. They look at the laundromat and they see drudgery, but I look at the laundromat and I see a license to print money that cannot be inflated away by the ego of a CEO. The question isn't whether you can find the next NVIDIA. The question is whether you have the temperament to hold on to a boring business for 30 years while your brother-in-law gets rich quick on some stupidity that eventually goes to zero. Most of you will fail this test, not because you lack the IQ, but because you lack the character to be bored. If you want to understand why most family fortunes disintegrate into nothing within 3 generations, you have to understand the difference between looking wealthy and actually being solvent. I am going to take you through the mental models that explain why simplicity, dullness, and a lack of imagination are often the most profitable traits a person can possess. We are going to invert the problem of getting rich. Instead of asking how to make $1 billion, we will ask, how do smart people lose everything they have? And the answer, almost always, is that they tried to be too smart. They abandoned the laundromat to chase the hurricane. Let us be charitable for a moment to the people who chase the hype. I want to steelman their argument, because I am not interested in debating straw men. The argument for chasing high-tech, high-growth, speculative assets is seductive, and on the surface, it appears rational. They will tell you that we are living in a time of unprecedented monetary debasement. They will say that holding cash is a guaranteed loss, which is true, and that traditional businesses like a laundromat or a candy store cannot possibly grow fast enough to keep up with the expansion of the money supply. They will argue that in a digital world, the only way to capture outsized returns is to bet on network effects, on tokens, on the new oil of the 21st century. They will point to the institutional adoption of these assets by the giants of finance, the BlackRocks, and the Fidelities, and say, "Look, the smart money is moving here, Charlie. You are just an old dinosaur who doesn't understand the blockchain." And they are right about one thing: the technology is often real, and the change is often profound. If you had bought Amazon in 1999 and held it through the 90% drawdown, you would be incredibly wealthy today. The argument is that you must accept extreme volatility and extreme complexity to achieve extreme wealth. They believe that the old rules of valuing a business based on its cash flow are dead, replaced by valuing a business based on its total addressable market or its community. This is a powerful narrative. It appeals to your greed, yes, but it also appeals to your fear. The fear of being left behind, the fear of being the only one at the cocktail party who didn't triple their money last month. It is the fear that if you don't jump on the train, you will be stuck working at the laundromat forever while your neighbor buys a yacht. This social anxiety is a powerful intoxicant, more potent than any rational analysis. It transforms a neighbor's good fortune into a harsh judgment on your own inadequacy. You start to believe that prudence is just another synonym for cowardice. And I will admit, there are times in history where the gambler wins. There are times when the reckless are rewarded and the prudent look like fools. But now, let me tell you why that argument is rat poison. The problem with the new era argument is that it relies on a variable you cannot control, the willingness of a greater fool to pay more than you did. When you own a laundromat or a farm or a pipeline, you do not care if the stock market is open or closed for the next 5 years. If the market closes, people still need to wash their clothes. People still need to eat. The asset produces value internally, regardless of the external opinion of the crowd. When you buy a speculative asset, and I don't care if it's a tulip bulb in the 17th century or a digital coin today, you are entirely dependent on the psychological state of the herd. You have surrendered your fate to the madness of crowds. Let's look at the arithmetic, which is something most people hate doing because it ruins their fantasies. Suppose you have a boring business that yields a steady 15% return on capital, year after year. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't get you invited to Davos. But in 5 years, you have doubled your money. In 10 years, you have quadrupled it. This is the magic of the moat. A laundromat has a moat, not because it is technologically advanced, but because nobody else wants to do it. It is protected by the barrier of pain in the ass. Now compare that to the tech darling or the crypto trade. To justify the current valuations, these assets have to grow to the sky. But trees don't grow to the sky. Eventually, the law of large numbers kicks in. Eventually, competition arrives. Eventually, the government decides it doesn't like you. When you rely on hype, you are fighting gravity. When you rely on cash flow, you have gravity working for you. I have a friend who spent his life building a business that made industrial lubricants. It was filthy, it smelled bad, and he was the richest man in his town. He didn't have to watch the ticker tape on CNBC. He didn't have to worry about what the Federal Reserve chairman said at a press conference. He just sold lubricant. His customers were factories, so his demand was predictable and remarkably stable. He slept soundly because his wealth was not tied to the fleeting whims of a headline. The speculator is perpetually tethered to the price chart, a slave to the green and red candles. That is the kind of peace of mind that you cannot buy with Bitcoin. But there is a second layer to this, and it brings us back to that headline about the family and the spouses. The difficulty of wealth is not making it. The difficulty is keeping it. I was reading about the Vanderbilt family recently. Cornelius Vanderbilt was one of the richest men who ever lived. He built a massive fortune through brutal efficiency and a relentless focus on productive assets, ships, and railroads. When he died, he left the vast majority of it to one son, because he knew that if he split it up, the capital would dissipate. But within 50 years, just 2 generations later, the first major gathering of his descendants took place, and there wasn't a single millionaire among them. The fortune was gone, evaporated. Why? Because they bought big houses in Newport. Because they married people who loved their money more than they loved them. Because they stopped producing and started consuming. The third generation saw the railroads not as engines of commerce, but as an abstract ledger that funded their lifestyles. They developed a contempt for the work that created their freedom, viewing business as a vulgar affair. They became experts in doing absolutely nothing of productive value. The grit of the patriarch was replaced by the sensibilities of the dilettante, who believed the fortune was a permanent feature of the universe. They forgot the brutal truth that capital must be defended every single day. It was a lesson they learned only after the auctioneers arrived at their mansions. This is the iron law of entropy in economics. Wealth has a natural tendency to decline. It is attacked from all sides, by inflation, by taxes, by lawyers, and most dangerously, by your own family. The headline about the laundromat owners worrying about their sons' spouses is the most rational thing I have read in months. It shows an understanding of human nature. It shows they understand that a bad marriage is more destructive to your net worth than a bear market. If you marry a spendthrift or a person with a sense of entitlement, no amount of investment return can save you. You can make 20% a year in the market, But if your spouse spends 25% a year, you are going broke. This is why I always say the most important career decision you make is who you marry, and the second most important decision is to structure your life so you don't have to be smart every single day. If you own a speculative asset, you have to be smart every day. You have to know when to sell. You have to watch the news. You have to panic when the price drops. If you own the boring business, you can be stupid for a year and you'll still probably be fine. The business itself has a safety margin because it serves a fundamental human need. A well-run plumbing supply company can easily survive a bad manager, but a leveraged crypto fund can be wiped out by one bad tweet. This robustness is the most underrated quality in any financial endeavor. We have a word for this in engineering: safety margin. The bridge is built to hold 30,000 pounds, but we only drive 10,000-pound trucks over it. The modern investor is driving a 29,000-pound truck over a bridge built for 30,000 pounds and calling himself a genius because he hasn't fallen into the river yet. It is not genius. It is merely a delayed catastrophe. So, what is the lesson here? It is not that you should go out and buy a laundromat tomorrow. The lesson is that you should fall in love with the unsexy. You should look for the things that other people ignore because they are too difficult, too boring, or too messy. If you are sitting there with a portfolio full of things that require a narrative to explain why they are valuable, you are in danger. If you have to talk for 20 minutes to explain why your asset has value, it probably has none. A farm has value because it grows corn. A laundromat has value because it cleans clothes. Coca-Cola has value because people drink it. This is not complicated. But people love complexity because it makes them feel sophisticated. It allows them to use jargon at dinner parties to signal their intellectual superiority. They mistake describing a complex mechanism for understanding its inherent risk. True intelligence is simplifying the complex, not complicating the simple. They want to feel like they are part of the future. Well, I have news for you. The future belongs to the people who don't go broke. And the surest way to go broke is to try to get rich quick with assets you don't understand, surrounded by people you shouldn't trust. Be like the family with the laundromats. Worry about the cash flow. Worry about the character of the people you let into your life, and let the rest of the world chase the shiny objects off the cliff. I would rather be slow and right than fast and dead. It is a simple choice, but you would be amazed at how many people get it wrong. I have nothing more to add.